Good evening and welcome. This is the meeting of the Special Education Advisory Committee of the Halton District School Board for Tuesday, October the 11th, 2022. This meeting is currently being held online in response to COVID-19 precautions. In accordance with Ontario Regulation 463-97 and the guidelines effective February the 1st, 2021, HDSB promotes community engagement and participation by having processes in place for members of the public to ask questions. A Google form was attached to the agenda, distributed in advance of the meeting, and is also posted on the HDSB SEAC website page. Questions posed during live stream meetings of SEAC may be answered during the meeting, particularly those related to agenda items, or at the following meeting at the discretion of the chair. For efficiency, multiple questions received that are similar in nature may be grouped together at the discretion of the chair and/or vice chair. Questions will not be attributed. Notation will be made that multiple people ask the same question. Any questions that contain language that is hateful or discriminatory will not be considered. So first of all, we'll start with a roll call to record who's in attendance. Please answer yes or present when Lucille calls your name.
Hi, I'm going to start with the trustees. Tracy.
Hello, everyone. I'm here.
Heather.
I haven't seen her, no.
She will be here.
Okay.
Joanna.
Good evening.
Margot.
Hi, everybody.
ABC. Yellen.
I'm here. Good evening, everyone.
Jen.
Nope.
Autism Ontario. Lisa, I think, has sent her regrets.
Yes.
Community Living. Candace.
Nope.
Okay. Easter Seals. Melissa.
I'm here. Good evening.
Sarah.
I'm here. Good evening.
Good evening. Halton Down Syndrome Association. Sophia.
No, I haven't seen her.
Rebecca.
Nope.
Okay. Learning Disabilities Association of Halton and Hamilton. Our chair, Alison.
I'm here.
Diane van den Bosch.
I haven't seen her.
Okay. Boyce. Aaron, I think I've seen.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
And Kathy. Kathy.
Yeah.
Yep. And now the members at large. Myself, I'm here. James.
Haven't seen him tonight.
No. Diane Miller.
Present.
Okay. And then from the board, Colette.
Good evening.
Sean.
Good evening.
Roberto.
Hello.
Angela.
Hi, everyone.
Is there anybody that I've not mentioned? Okay, over to you, Alison.
Great. Well, we'll start by honouring the land. Halton, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis. From the Anishinaabe to the Attawandaran, the Haudenosaunee and the Métis, these lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather today on these treaty lands, we have the responsibility to honour and respect the four directions: land, waters, plants, animals, ancestors that walk before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for sharing their traditional territory with us. So our first step tonight is to approve the agenda for tonight's meetings. Are there any modifications or amendments that need to be made? If so, could you make that known in the chat or raise your hand?
Okay. Erin, would you like to move a motion to approve the agenda?
Certainly, I would move to approve the agenda.
We need a seconder. Catherine.
So is there any opposition to the agenda as it stands? If you could make yourself known, if you oppose the agenda as it stands. Okay, none being seen, the agenda is approved unanimously. So next is the approval of our September the 13th, 2022 meeting minutes. Would anybody like to bring to our attention any errors or omissions?
Okay. Diane Miller, would you like to move a motion to approve the minutes?
Diane, you're
Sorry,
mute.
I was having trouble with my audio. Yes, I will move that motion. Sorry.
Oh, we have lots of people joining now. Yalen, would you like to second the motion?
Sure, I'll second the motion.
Great. So is there any opposition to the minutes as recorded? Okay, none being given, the minutes are unanimously approved. Okay, so we're going to begin our action items this evening, and I am very excited to be able to welcome back Rob Garcia and Angela Sauvé and Sean Marks to provide us with a presentation about the fabulous work being undertaken in Project Search.
Thanks very much. I'm going to hand it over to Angela and Rob as they're the experts in this area, but we're very excited to present the work that's been done and continues to be done with Project Search. So Rob and Angela, it's yours.
Awesome. Thank you. We are so excited to be here with you today to share information about Project Search. Our Community Pathways program focuses on developing skills of independence and making sure that students are prepared for life after graduation. Through our Employable Skills Certificate program and now our Community Skills Co-op program, students are given the opportunity to develop work readiness skills prior to graduation. Project Search is an extension of the great work happening in our CPPs across the board. So where did it all begin? Project Search was started in 1996 by Aaron Reichel at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. Now, 26 years later, there are over 700 Project Search sites worldwide, and we're proud to say that Halton became the first in Ontario and second in Canada. In 2021, we were approached by the Ministry of Education to become a mentor board as they were looking to spread the program across the province. There are now, only 3 years later, 17 school boards offering this amazing opportunity to students with developmental disabilities. In the fall of 2018, we were approached by Jim Fair of Oakville-Trafalgar Memorial Hospital to enter a partnership with them that would provide students with developmental disabilities an opportunity to develop work readiness skills in an authentic work environment. Obviously, we're very excited about this. For years, CPP staff have been pounding the pavement, looking for co-op opportunities for students nearing graduation in their communities. Now we have the second largest employer in Halton asking us to become a partner with them. With the support of Mark Zonnefeld, Sean Marks, and now Colette Ruddock, we were able to make this happen despite some very challenging circumstances in 2018 when we were approached. Project Search is a regional program, meaning it's open to all students. So we have students from all of our CPP sites involved in Project Search, although it's officially attached to TA Blakelock. This allows for more streamlined administrative oversight, which has been helpful over the years. The program is operated out of Oakville-Trafalgar Memorial Hospital, where students spend the entire year learning specific and general work readiness skills. The program is available to students in their graduating year or for students who turn 18 before December the 31st. The class size is consistent with those in our community pathways programs, capped at 12 students, and students learn in a variety of settings, participating in 3 distinct work internships over the course of the year. In our first year, students could choose from one of 10 internships, and now 3 years later, we have 20 internships available. This allows us to place students in internships which align with their skill set and their interest. All in-class instruction is completed in a beautiful space graciously provided by OTMH. It's really a community partnership. The program is successful because of the collaboration and contributions of our community partners. Oakville Trafalgar provides a classroom space, a variety of work internships, and the on-site leadership of Jim Fair and Linda Ivory. Enough cannot be said about the support and the commitment to Project Search by Jim and Linda. They have been absolutely critical in the success of the program. Community Living Oakville has been amazing and has provided 2 excellent skills trainers, Florina and Mike, who assist our students in their internships, and they also provide follow-up upon graduation, helping students go out into the community, apply for jobs, work on resumes, and so that follow-up piece is critical as well. And of course, there's the Halton District School Board. We provide the classroom teacher who has been absolutely amazing. Her name is Lisa Prentice. She has been outstanding since day one, and we're extremely lucky to have her. And then, of course, most importantly, we provide the students.
We'd also like to take this opportunity tonight to share with you some of the results we've had at Project Search so far. In our first year, we decided as a board to start with a smaller class size. This allowed us to ensure the success of our interns while we focused on establishing the project. It was very exciting and challenging as we navigated relationships and partnerships to develop our routines, our protocols, and a general sense of working together. Over the course of the first year, we saw immense skill development, maturing, and a sense of accomplishment in our students. As they went out to work each day, they were welcomed, along with the staff working with them, into a variety of departments throughout the hospital, including the ones on your screen. On the far right, that's one of our first graduates. His name is Marlo, and he did a work placement in the emergency room. The photo on your left, that's Anaya, and she had the opportunity to work in the dialysis department. In our first year, we also gained a lot of attention from the community, including Global News, who did a story that featured our students, the classroom teacher, and partners from Community Living. Out of our 8 graduates in the first year, 6 became employed at OTMH immediately, while the other 2 continued to work through the Project Search follow-along model, consisting of a job coach and training after completing the program. Part of the uniqueness of Project Search is that follow-along model, where community partners continue to work alongside graduates as they seek employment and they provide job coaching services. The 6 students who were employed within Halton Healthcare found work in ambulatory care, food services, porter services, and inpatient rehabilitation. There was a real diverse range of departments offering employment in our second year, and that continues to grow as additional departments are exposed to Project Search students and acknowledge their contributions to the workplace. 2020 was a difficult year for both education and healthcare. Despite ongoing fluctuation in protocols, access to the hospital, and challenges in education with school closures, Project Search Halton remained running within the hospital. It took significant effort on behalf of Community Living, the Halton Healthcare team, and the Halton District School Board to remain safe and flexible. But through it, in our second year running, we had 8 students graduate, 6 of which became competitively employed, with graduates working in pandemic support, clinical information services, food services, and within the retail sector of the hospital. We saw students gain successful employment in different departments in our second year, expanding the reach of Project Search's impact. Last year, in the 2021-22 school year, we had our largest graduating class so far of 9 students, all of whom are working competitively. Within the hospital, students were employed in food services, the retail sector, and at the restaurants, and added to the list of those departments, environmental services. One of the most challenging departments to get our students employed in is the medical device reprocessing area of the hospital, as it requires completion of a college program and the writing of a proficiency test. One student and in last year's graduating class has successfully enrolled in the medical device reprocessing course at Mohawk College with the hope of employment within that department after successful completion. In 3 years, the Halton District School Board has seen 25 students graduate from Project Search, 21 of which have achieved competitive employment. In Ontario, we have a mandate in PPM 156 to ensure successful transitions for students with exceptionalities. Project Search has not only aided in our efficacy in those transitions, but led to some additional improvements that Rob spoke of earlier in our programming for all students in our Community Pathways program. We are so excited to be in our 4th year of Project Search and on track again for an additional set of employed graduates. When we compare our success against the national average, Inclusion Canada noted that only 25% of persons with intellectual disabilities are employed. Project Search worldwide has an employment rate of 75%, which is a significant increase. But here in Halton, in 3 short years, we've seen an employment rate of 84%, and that's truly something to celebrate. So, what's next in the Halton District School Board? In early 2020, the Ministry of Education became aware of Project Search and has begun a developmental disabilities pilot program across Ontario in conjunction with Project Search to encourage participation from additional school boards from across the province. As one of the first boards in Ontario to run Project Search, the Halton District School Board was asked to take on a mentoring role to support interested boards as they begin their own programs. That means that we are regularly meeting with the ministry and supporting new school boards by sharing our processes and our learning, doing site visits, and helping to coordinate and facilitate industry partners. Being able to share our journey of success and help school boards navigate starting their own will continue this year as 2 new school boards establish their site and 11 more begin the process for next fall. As for our own site, this school year, we have 10 students from across the board at OTMH. They have just begun their first internships, and the team of staff are encouraged by their enthusiasm. As the program gains momentum in the organization, internship opportunities are growing, and hospital staff are often commenting about a shift in mindset to more fully recognizing the contribution of persons with disabilities in the workplace, as these students demonstrate positive work habits and provide enrichment to their workplace.
So the impact that Project Search has had cannot be understated. We have seen in 3 short years, students grow and learn, families develop renewed hope for their children's future, an organization transform itself from feeling uncertain about the role of people with disabilities to actively seeking interns to work in their department. It has made OTMH more diverse and inclusive. And now we're seeing the program impact our community at large. We are having businesses approach us, asking how they can become involved in this initiative. It's been truly amazing. I started working with children with developmental disabilities when I was very young at some summer camps when I was 15 years old. And I remember working with a boy named Matthew, who I ended up doing respite work with. He was my age, actually 15, and I did respite work with him for about 5 years. And I remember dropping him off one time after he had graduated from high school, and I asked his mother, what happens now? And I'll never forget the look in her eye of what appeared to me as fear. And I'm excited that we are doing programs like this and making sure that our students are ready to move into the world with skills that will allow them to be independent. And so we're just super excited about this, and we're happy to be here tonight to present it.
We're just going to share with you to finish off tonight an amazing video that will give you a greater sense of what it is, the impact that it's had on the greater community. So enjoy.
The ultimate goal of Project Search is to support our students through finding competitive employment. We do that through teaching both the soft skills and the employability skills, such as time management, communication skills, self-advocacy, budgeting, teamwork, and they're able to actually practice that in the workplace here at the hospital.
So Project Search for my son has been life-changing at this point for him. He feels like he belongs and he's learning employment skills. So for us, that means that he'll find meaningful employment, and it makes we're just more excited about the future for him.
Project Search has given him the ability to become part of a team, doing exactly the same job, doing it very well. And he views himself as someone who's going to be able to be independent, going to work, and really be like everybody else and be part of a team. So he really knows this is his destiny because he can do that now. And it's just a great gift for him.
What I like about Project Search is instead of going for our last year of high school, we come here and have this opportunity to learn a work experience for when we're out in the real life.
We are looking at partnerships, and in our strategic plan, collaboration is a huge component of that. We looked and reached out to the Halton District School Board, Community Living, Autism Life Path to put this program in place and partnering with them.
We're trying to help the students to live independently and to find them meaningful job, to help them with their daily life, to provide to the community.
I think this project is great for Halton. I mean, I don't know where else he would have got this experience.
Thank you so much for your time this evening.
Well, I would like to thank you so much for presenting this project to us again. It is absolutely inspiring, and I want to open up for any questions that anybody has. Catherine.
It's not really a question. Like, I was, from the beginning of the presentation to the end, I'm crying. So that's how moved I am, because my son going into CPP next year and just hearing that there's something at the end for him means the world to me. So that's all I just wanted to say. So thank you.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Hello. Heather.
Thank you. Although I've seen this presentation a couple of times, it warms my heart. It makes me just so happy. The question that I have, and I know we've asked this at the board table, but I'm going to ask it again because I think it's really critical. Is there any chance that we can expand this program into the individual communities so that some of our students from the north up here don't have to go all the way down to Oakville? I know that transportation is provided, but that's at a cost, and that keeps our students out of their own community. And then if they do actually get a job, they may not have the opportunity or the ability to get down to Oakville, Trafalgar. I'm just wondering, perhaps the numbers might even be higher of employment, if they were working in their own areas. So is there any way we can expand this?
I would say that, the experience that they have at Oakville Trafalgar Hospital, if it leads to employment at the hospital, if it works for that family, that's a great scenario. But the spirit of the program is really to develop those transferable skills, and that follow along with the skills trainers allow students to get back to their home community and start applying for jobs where they can take the skills that they've learned at OTMH and move into competitive employment in their community, which is ideal. That's what we would like. We do have a Milton site in terms of the Catholic Board has opened a site in Milton. But for us, we're really focused on making sure that students have skills that they can transfer out of the hospital setting. Not all of our students are working in the hospital. They're working, many of them working competitively. And so when Community Living Oakville follows our students along, they're really working hard to make sure that they have those opportunities in their home community should getting to the hospital become an issue.
Great, thank you. Rebecca.
Hi, good evening. My camera's not working tonight, sorry. But I have two quick questions. That was fantastic presentation. And again, as Catherine said, heartwarming for our students to know that there is an end goal that everybody's working towards. So first question is, how do students qualify? How do we decide which candidates are eligible for the program? And businesses, if we know of businesses that are already inclusive and working towards supporting our individuals with intellectual disabilities, what do they need to do as an application to be part of the program?
So I'll answer your second question first. In terms of, becoming involved and accessing our graduates and finding more information about Project Search, they can contact myself or Angela, and we'd be happy to provide them information around how to connect with us. And then we're actually considering maybe perhaps having a job fair at the end of this year. And so we're constantly thinking about ways to promote our graduates. But in the meantime, they're more than welcome to contact us for more information. And sorry, can you remind me of your first question again?
Yeah, absolutely. How students qualify for the program, for the candidates?
So it's a selection process. So we invite all students who meet the criteria in terms of age to apply. And so we do not filter out any applicants whatsoever. Anyone over the age of 18 in our Community Pathways program, or who meet the criteria for the program, which is to have a diagnosis of a developmental or mild intellectual disability, are encouraged to apply. Once we receive all the applications, we review them as part of a committee, a selection committee. We invite all students who apply to what we call a skills assessment day. And so for the last year we did it in person. The 2 years prior, it was very difficult to do, obviously with COVID, but it was really nice to have all the students participate in skills assessment day last year, where students participate in a number of different activities. And it really is not about who has the most refined skill. We're looking for students who have problem-solving strategies, who ask questions. And so after that skills assessment, along with the application, we sit down as a committee, which include our community partners, and we make decisions based on who will be accepted.
Can I also add to the original question around partnerships with businesses, local businesses? Project Search has also taught us a lot that we can bring back into our CPP program for the co-op placements. And schools in all the sites are always looking for opportunities for their students to have authentic workplace experiences. So although the hospital provides a really rich location and opportunities for our students under the Project Search umbrella, we still have our co-op placements for students in CPP that we are always trying to find placements for. So if you know of people, or if there are people listening right now to this webcast, we encourage them to reach out to their school. And you can also reach out to myself to myself, and we'd be happy to have a conversation about what that might look like.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions at this time? No? Okay. Well, I want to thank you again so much for coming and presenting to us. As I say, it is wonderful to see our students working, in, as you say, real life situations. It's meaningful work, it's valuable work, it's bringing their strengths to the employer, and that's a wonderful project that we're able to work with. So thank you so much for all your hard work on this. And I want to say congratulations to all the students and candidates and graduates, and want to encourage everybody to apply and see if they can become part of this wonderful program. So thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Okay. So at this stage, we're going to move on to item 2.2, and I know you're probably all fed up of my voice, but it is LD and ADHD Awareness Month, and so I have been asked to do a presentation on the Learning Disabilities Association and the work that we do to inform you about what's going on at our organization and to update you on the services that we provide. So I'm going to do a presentation. I'm going to share my screen now, if I can work out how to do that. Yes. And I'm going to share a window. This one, okay. So I hope this is going to work. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good, because I can't see anybody now. So if anybody's got their hand up, please just say something, because I can't see you now. Okay, so as you all know, I am the Executive Director at the Learning Disabilities Association, and I wanted to talk to you this month as we celebrate LD and ADHD Awareness Month about who we are, who we are becoming, and how we can help in the community. So first of all, for everybody here, I'm sure you know a lot about LDs, but I'm going to give some background. Learning disabilities are the most common category of disability that's present in the school system. About 54% of students with disabilities have an LD or ADHD. About 1 in 10. So in a regular classroom, we may be looking at 2 or 3 students having an LD or ADHD in each classroom. So very common. And unfortunately, often not necessarily recognized. Many of our students do well, but have the ability to do better if they're supported. So many of our students are actually on unidentified IEPs rather than having to be identified in order to gain supports. And a lot of them are in a regular classroom accommodated by the classroom teacher. And just to give a clear understanding of what learning disabilities are, there are neurological disorders. So brain wiring that is different from a neurotypical person. To be diagnosed with a learning disability, an individual must have an average to gifted intelligence. So we're talking about students who are above average intelligence, but who struggle. And so may struggle with academic underachievement, so may struggle to get the grades that they're capable of, or may have to put in extremely high levels of effort in order to achieve them. So it's generally noted, so teachers may well notice when there's academic underachievement, perhaps a student is struggling with reading or struggling with math, and that may bring them to attention. What is less likely to come to attention are the students who are putting in a vast amount of effort at home in order to achieve the equivalent level to their peers. So, for example, for my daughter, we do 4 to 5 hours of homework every night. That's just the way it is, and we spend all weekend doing homework. So our students, those students in particular, may not get identified unless parents bring it to the attention that this doesn't seem to be what peers are doing, and perhaps there's something that's inhibiting learning that's making it more difficult for our students to receive, retain, process, and communicate their information in the same way as their peers. Learning disabilities are often genetic, so one of the things we have to recognize when dealing with parents of students who have LDs is often the parent may themselves have an LD, and so our communication needs to recognize that and be accessible in a way that parents are able to comprehend the information that we're giving them in as much, as broad a format as possible, so that they're able to support their students. There are many different types of learning disability, and so the most common ones are dyslexia, which affects about 80% of students with a learning disability. Dyscalculia is a struggle with math. Nonverbal learning disability is one of the most terribly named LDs. Our students with NBLD are highly verbal, but struggle with anything that is not presented in a verbal format, so anything that's visual. So again, lots of LDs. ADHD is not specifically a learning disability, but affects so many of our students with LDs that it often comes under the umbrella. So we're dealing with many different types of processing disorders, but they are all neurological. It's all down to a change in the way of the wiring, and all of these students have average to gifted intelligence, but struggle to process the information in the same way that their peers do. And for these students, the fact that they're bright and the fact that they're struggling causes a lot of mental health issues. We find that on average, 35% of students with an LD will drop out of school before graduating. So we're talking about, again, those students who are of average to gifted intelligence who do not finish high school because they can't succeed. 62% of students with an LD will be unemployed a year after graduating. So even if they do manage to graduate high school, they may not have the skills necessary to retain employment. And because of this, many may be forced into risk-taking or behaviors that they need to undertake to generate some level of income. So that 30% of youth in the criminal justice system have an LD. Again, some of our brightest children. And the mental health pressure this puts on is absolutely extreme. About 40% of students with an LD have anxiety, depression, or low self-esteem. And the most shocking statistic for me is that almost 50% of adolescent suicides involve a youth with an LD. So we're talking about bright students who are unable to succeed because their brain is not exactly like their peers, being in a situation where they feel that they need to take their own life to cope with the mental anguish.
My name is Jade. I'm in the 8th grade, and reading is a huge struggle for me. The teacher would ask me to read in front of the class aloud. I'd open my mouth, but no words would come out. Not because I couldn't speak, because I couldn't read the words on the page. They were jumping around, backwards, blurry, sideways. D was a B, W was an M. I just kept it all to myself. Like, no one can relate to me. This is just my problem, and I have to deal with it. I have to find a way to deal with this. Oh, my God. I can still remember the names. Idiot, dummy, slow, special ed. It's like every day going through that takes a piece of you. After a while, you just you get this numb feeling, like it just doesn't bother you anymore. That's when you get really worried. That's when you should get really worried. When you get this numbing feeling, someone calls you and you're like, I don't care. They're right. That's the worst feeling in the world. My name is Jade.
Oops. So I hope you could hear that presentation. But again, this is a child with dyslexia, struggling to feel accepted in school, struggling to achieve what she knows she's capable of, struggling to be accepted by her peers. And you can see how that mental health piece starts to invade her life and become a major barrier to her success. So what do we do to help? So the Learning Disabilities Association of Halton Hamilton has a long history. We've been around for about 55 years in Halton, and we've been in Hamilton for about 5 years. We're a community-based charity, so we don't receive any permanent government funding. We're not a government agency. We rely on donations, fee-for-service, and grants to fund our programming. A lot of our programming is run with the help of volunteers. But within our organization, we provide a wide range of programming and supports, mainly focused for for a vast number of those 55 years on literacy, with 80% of students struggling with that as dyslexic students. But in the recent years, we've introduced numeracy, social skills, self-advocacy, career development, and we've always provided parent support. So support to parents as they navigate the education system, as they navigate the world as a parent of a child with an LD, and the unique challenges that brings. Over the last 3 years, we have seen a massive surge in demand. And, I'm very, very proud of our staff with the fact that we've risen to the challenge. So for the last, from before 2020, we kind of hovered around 100 to 200 students served every year. We were a small nonprofit working in our community to provide the services that we were needed. And then COVID hit. And the demand increased dramatically, and we started introducing other programs. So we introduced math, again, social skills, executive functioning, and our services have exponentially increased. This year we'll serve over 1,200 students in the year, and that doesn't include the parents that we serve on a separate basis, but the students that are involved in our direct programming services. So again, massive growth, massive demand for service, and a massive need for us to be able to meet that demand, to go out there and look for grants to provide services that our students and families need. But as an organization, we are evolving. And we've recognized over the last little while that we don't just serve students with LDs. And so we serve many types of diverse learners. We serve students with dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, nonverbal LDs, and other specific LDs. But we also serve those with ADHD, which, as I've mentioned, is not classified as a learning disability. We do serve students with high spectrum autism. Any student that can communicate verbally is welcome in our social skills programming, where we feel there will be benefit in our other programming, such as career development. And we also have a lot of supports and a lot of programming for comorbid mental health issues, because we recognize that most of the students that come to us will have some level of anxiety involved with their LD. We also are able to support some students with mild intellectual disabilities if we feel that if we and their parents feel that they would benefit from our programming. So while being called the Learning Disabilities Association of Halton and Hamilton, we in fact serve a much wider range of learners. And because of that, we're kind of embracing, as an organization, more of a neurodiversity term, the strength of our diverse learners. Over the last 5-6 months, we've undergone a lot of community engagement to develop our new strategic plan. And it's become very clear to us that many of the students that we serve feel the huge stigma that comes with the term learning disabilities. There are very few disabilities that have the word disability stuck at the end of it every single time it's mentioned. So if somebody's hard of hearing, we don't say they're hard of hearing disabled. If they have CP, we don't say they have cerebral palsy disability. And yet every time that we talk about a student with a learning disability, we talk about their learning and then we put the word disability at the end of it. And a lot of our students who, as we said, are bright, find that very, very stigmatizing. So we're moving towards focusing more on the actual LD, so dyslexia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, realigning with the Ontario Human Rights Commission's Right to Read report, which asked school boards, asked the community to focus more on the terms like that, which were less stigmatizing and were more reflective of the actual disability that was taking place. We also want to recognize that neurodiversity is a strength. Many of our students, because of the way that their brain is wired, have very, very unique strengths that they're able to bring to the table. And by moving towards the term of diverse learners, we hope to refocus on the strength, supporting our students to be able to achieve their full potential in their learning environment. Now we're going to hear a little bit about what that means for, as we embrace more diverse learning, move towards neurodiversity, and bring in more of a focus on the comorbid ADHD that affects many, many of our students.
I asked people with ADHD one question. What do you want the world to know about your ADHD?
This is what I want you to know about my ADHD. It takes me a lot of hard work to get my work turned in on time. I'm very smart, but my grades drop sometimes.
If I could actually sit down and start my homework, I would. But many days I just can't, and struggling with something so seemingly simple tends to make me feel very frustrated or even stupid.
I'd like the world to know that there are people like me out there who get good grades, rarely get in trouble, and yet can and do have ADHD and struggle with the symptoms that come along with it.
Just because you can't see it doesn't mean that it isn't there. My ADHD affects every aspect of my life, from sleep to school to work, all of my relationships, and I have to tailor my entire life around having it.
It doesn't always look the same. I was only diagnosed at 25 because I have the inattentive type.
I'm basically hyperactive. I was diagnosed at the age of 7.
I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD until I was 38, so I always thought you need to be hyperactive to have it.
I've filmed this video too many times now, and I can't get it right, and it's really stressing me out now.
I try really hard, and it hurts when people act like I'm not trying as hard as I am.
But the worst part is when my symptoms aren't taken as symptoms, they're taken as behaviors done intentionally to upset someone or consider that I don't care, and that's never been the case.
Whenever you think that I intentionally tried to hurt you, I didn't. I probably just screwed up.
I'm at least as frustrated as you, and probably even more.
When I say I forgot, I'm not lazy. I'm not just trying to make an excuse. It's a real struggle, and I'm probably even more pissed off at myself than you are at me.
There is a giant flipping war going on inside this head. I really am trying.
When I use my accommodations, it's not me trying to take the easy way out. All I'm trying to do is level the playing field so that you and I have a lot more even chance of success.
When you see me arranging my pens and pencils according to color, it's because my brain is trying to compensate for the chaos within.
I squeeze some Play-Doh in my hand and help me concentrate on what I'm doing.
I moved to a special spot in the classroom for tests because I can't block out noises and distractions like you can.
While I'm staring off into space, it doesn't mean I'm stupid.
It doesn't mean that I'm not listening to you.
Normally it means that you've taken a really interesting thought which my impulsive brain can't help but chase.
Having ADHD is like having a billion trampolines in your head, each representing a thought, and your brain just jumping off each and every one every second.
I don't think about ADHD as a disorder. I think it's more of a different way of thinking.
I know my brain works differently, but ADHD can give me an advantage with what I'm doing.
It may take me a while to come to a solution. It tends to be really different than everybody else's, and a lot of people appreciate that.
I've been told my whole life I need to be fighting my brain. I'm learning now that I need to love and work with my brain.
It's not an excuse. It's an explanation, and it's something that I'm going to continue working on for the rest of my life, and that's okay.
I'm smart, but ADHD makes focusing hard and hides my abilities. If I'm given the chance, I can achieve more.
To meet this amazing community and learn more about how to support them, please visit howtoadhd.com/howtohelp. Please.
So I hope that just watching that quick video there gives you an idea of the type of struggles that many of our students face. So not only would they have, say, dyslexia, but they also have the neurological disorder of ADHD, which makes paying attention to the remedial strategies that are going on even harder for them to face. So as we move forward as within our organization, we are continuing to focus on programming. We use evidence-based and multisensory programming, supporting the whole child. So we focus on social skills, social emotional self-regulation, as well as literacy, numeracy, those programs. We're also working to ensure that we have accessibility, both geographical, within the wide area that we cover. We had programming in the summer in Milton, in Burlington, in Hamilton. We're making sure that our programming is available online and in person. And we're working very, very hard to make sure that our programs are financially accessible. With the onset of COVID, we've gone from about 25% of our families seeking a subsidy for programming to over 75% of our families seeking subsidies. And with that dramatic increase in programming, you can see that that is quite a large financial strain on a small organization. We're also building youth programming and collaborating with other agencies to provide wraparound support where we are not able to provide all of the support that family may need. We want to be and hope to be a leader in knowledge provision. So each year we put on a Solutions for Learning conference where we bring in speakers from around the world to talk about best practice for teaching students with neurodiversity. We provide resource facilitation support. So if family needs support from us, whether that's reviewing an IEP, whether that's just chatting about what it's like to support a child with an LD, frustrations that a family may have with ADHD, they just need to call. We have an appointment maker that on our website. You can just book an appointment with us and somebody will be able to chat. We also run parent workshops. We just had one on IEPs and IPRCs and had over 200 parents register for a program, over 150 of whom registered within 3 hours. We have Understanding the Dyslexic Journey coming up later this month by TED Talk host and charity founder Dean Bragania. And then we have an ADHD behavior management series coming up by Dr. Silvestri later on at the end of the month. And then finally, we do community and educator presentations. So we work with Brock University, I'm at Rock, work with other schools to provide support. We run neurodiversity presentations in HDSB schools when staff invite us in to talk about what it means to be neurodiverse for some of our students. As an organization, we embrace equity, diversity, inclusion, and we're trying to encourage the re-recognition of the fact that disabilities and mental health need to be seen as an essential part of the EDI conversation. We know that sometimes disabilities are not involved, and bearing in mind that disabilities affect everybody regardless of race, ethnicity, or religion, disabilities needs to be there at the table. We are highly involved in the Government of Canada's initiative for 50-30, which is that 50% of our staff, volunteers and board will be women, and 30% will be from equity-seeking groups. We're also undertaking a wonderful and very exciting research project with ASHE Community Foundation. ASHE is a Black disability justice organization, a national organization, and we're working with the Afro-Canadian Caribbean Association of Hamilton to understand the barriers to education employment that Black youth with LDs and ADHD have in our region. So trying to understand if there's different struggles there and how allow space for youth voices to come up with solutions that they would like to see. And we're also building equity relationships with other intersectional equity-seeking groups. So for anybody who needs help, so remembering, just need to be a diverse learner. We're here to support all diverse learners. We have a lot of experience on LDs, ADHD, but many of our programs are suitable for other exceptionalities from mental health, from mild intellectual disabilities, and high spectrum autism. You can visit our website where we have a vast array of support for a wide range of individuals, both caretakers, students, professionals, and educators. And we also have translation and accessibility tools built into our website. As I mentioned before, you can book a one-to-one parent support meeting or an educator meeting. We'll get somebody with the best expertise possible to support you and have a conversation with you. You can email us, or you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. And at that point, I'm going to say thank you for listening to us and for celebrating Learning Disabilities Awareness Month as we support all of our diverse learners. Thank you. Any questions? So, okay, Joanna, I just want to check. I've taken the screen down, haven't I now? Yeah, okay. All right, Joanna. You're on mute, sorry.
Yes. Hi. Perhaps I'll let Sarah go first. My question is related. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Sarah.
Okay. Thank you, Alison. That was really informative. I appreciate that. I'm just wondering, I know you mentioned that a lot of the students have informal IEPs, non-identified IEPs. I'm just wondering if you notice any barriers to receiving a diagnosis. And I guess if there is no diagnosis, how do you advocate, which I imagine is a huge question, but how do you encourage or advocate for students to have an IEP to begin with?
Yeah, so yes, first thing I would say is, in line with the Halton District School Board, my understanding is that any child who's struggling has the right to receive an IEP to support them, and that will be put in place. So while a diagnosis is not essential, it does help identify where the struggles are, which obviously supports the type of programming that the school team, the parents may want to put in to wrap around the child. The huge barrier that we face is the cost. I'm trying to get funding to do a research project on this, but from my perspective, I don't know if there are many other disabilities where parents, the school board either has to diagnose it, fund the diagnosis, or the parents have to fund the diagnosis at $3,000 a shot. So to me, that's a highly inequitable system where students with a learning disability are being forced to go out of pocket in order to get a diagnosis. So, that's something that we continue to push for, is that there should be an alternative pathway for our students to be able to get a diagnosis. But the current, the science behind it is that they have to go through a formal diagnosis by a member of the Ontario College of Psychologists to get that diagnosis. From our perspective, and I would consider from the school's perspective, I think we would be a lot better off if we had more data on who those children are and what those diagnoses are of those unidentified IEPs. And whether that's through the IEP engine where we can get some kind of information, or whether that's more access to diagnoses if parents want. And we have to recognize there's a stigma. There is a stigma to having a diagnosis of an LD. I went to Telling Tales and had my booth up there. And, we put the sign learning disabilities up, and I'm trying to explain to parents as they walk past, and they're like, no, that's not my child. That's the stigma that our kids face every day. And so some families don't want a diagnosis. Again, we're looking at, with our project with the Black community, are there cultural barriers that affect seeking a diagnosis? So I think there's a whole range of factors. The school system, particularly the Halton District School Board, I believe puts in the supports that are necessary. Whether they have the full information that would be useful is an issue. And again, one of the main challenges that we face, particularly supporting students with ADHD, is that is not an exceptionality. And so while they may be able to get an informal IEP for ADHD, they're not able to get a formal one because, and as we've mentioned, that ADHD, we heard in those stories, that ADHD is a incredible barrier to learning. So I don't know whether I answered your questions or just ranted for a little while, but from my perspective, there's a lot of things that need to change in the system, and getting a proper diagnosis is a start.
And I was just, I guess, curious about the inequitable access, and just sort of different groups that might be at more disadvantage. And especially, like you mentioned, a lot of kids sort of slipping through the cracks because they're working so hard at home. I think it was the one video, to keep up, that no one's really noticing, or maybe on the surface at school, they look like everything's fine, when it's not. But
yeah, and again, I mean, we do know that many of our families, we said it's hereditary. Many of our families may not have the supports, may not have progressed as well as they could have done, because the parent has a diagnosis themselves, which affects their employment opportunities. And so we end up a situation where families with socioeconomic struggles cannot afford to pay for a diagnosis themselves. And if they don't have the language or the communication to highlight this as an issue to the school system, then our kids fall through the cracks. Colette, I'll let you respond as well.
Thanks, and thanks. And I just want to say I loved hearing the kids' voices and the adults' voices. I mean, it's really quite impactful to hear from them around kind of the challenges of this disability. I just want to make a comment about the IEP, and the IEP is developed based on need. And sometimes that need comes through a diagnosis, but often it comes through a presenting need in a classroom. So just to echo what Allison said, that you don't have to have a diagnosis for an IEP. A school can implement one based on the need that's presenting in the classroom. And we used to, many years ago, refer to a formal IEP and an informal IEP. A formal IEP being one that comes with an identification through IPRC, and informal being one that comes through the presenting need or a diagnosis at the school. But we stopped using those terms because ultimately an IEP is an IEP. Whether it is through the IPRC process and an identification, or whether it is a diagnosis or presenting need in the classroom, the IEP carries the same weight. So the language kind of suggests that while we could maybe choose an informal or not, we maybe follow it, we maybe won't, really it is as binding, as important, as impactful as an IEP that is accessed through the IPRC process. So I just want to provide that assurance that in our mind, we now call it simply an IEP because they're equally important. And I want to also highlight something else Allison said around the unidentified IEPs. And this is something that we've spoken with SEAC about a few times in my short time with all of you, and hoping that we are gathering better data through our new Aspen system. But many of our students in that unidentified category have a diagnosis, but for one reason or another, families have decided not to pursue the identification through IPRC. But they get all of these supports and resources in that informal category. So we are working on gathering more rich data on who's in that unidentified category, what need is prevailing or what diagnosis is prevailing, so that we can really understand our kind of a group of learners better. But the unidentified IEP really comes from the IPRC process rather than the diagnosis, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I, thank you for the clarification, Colette. And yes, the IEP is the IEP. I think, again, as we said, it kind of shows as well some of the stigma that, parents and children may feel about having the diagnosis, that they want to keep some of that information tightly held. So yeah, it's Yarlene.
Thanks, Allison, and that was a great presentation. I think, as I was listening to your presentation, it's really resonate, and there was a lot of challenges that, ABC and we also face, because, I think the first thing, and as you mentioned, the name, and as learning disability, and because, parents will pass by saying that's not my kid. Same thing with gifted. And so we have two type of parents too, because it's also neurodiversity. And so it's not something that, you can easily see. So you have parents who believe their kids are very smart and they're gifted, or there are children who believe they're not nerds, so they're not gifted. And but they do show the symptoms, and they do face the challenges, like, many of those children and the family that you showed in the video. So, social, struggles, and as well as, this stigma that, the neurodiversity and people whose brain function very differently from, the majority. And so they face this kind of stigma in a society. I think the name and the gifted is not a good name either, and it doesn't really describe the group and that the students and the family face. And I think it's the same, just like learning disability. It doesn't really represent the neurodiversity, the challenges that those group of people that actually face. So that is my first comment as I was listening to. Second one that, my comment is that about resources that, I see that how much work that your association has taken on in the last couple of years to support the family. So I think the resource that, you provided to the family is just so wonderful. But I think there's also, there may be opportunities and for organizations to share resources, and so especially organizations that who are supporting similar group, or even in our community and family, and we have families that children who are very bright, gifted, but also with learning disability. And so this kind of, I think it's great to have this opportunity at SEAC to hear what different organization is doing and in supporting the family and children, and then perhaps for us to identify the opportunity to actually collaborate and among those organizations through the school board, and to actually find a more effective way and to support the families. So that is just something that I want us to make some comment here. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Yarlene. And yes, we're finding, again, there's so much intersectionality between, physical disabilities and LDs, and, where is autism stop and where does ADHD or LDs start? It's just a whole spectrum. And I think, even for SEAC, it's important for us to recognize that these are neurological disabilities or disorders, and there are no clear defined lines between any of them, and it's how do we support all of our learners. Joanna.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Allison, for your great presentation. It was very informative. I found the stats around the impact of learning disabilities and ADHD on student well-being and student academic and social outcomes quite poignant. So I wanted to close a loop here and remind us that a year ago, I brought forward, we started a conversation which bore out of a question that I received from a parent in one of my schools. and that was around how does HDSB include ADHD as a formal exceptionality alongside with all the neurodevelopmental disorders. And out of that conversation arose the motion for you to write a letter to the Minister of Education. And I believe that letter would have been shared with all SEAC chairs. And I was just wondering if perhaps Colette, you could tell us if there's been any conversations amongst your provincial peers and counterparts about this, and if there's any conversation at the ministry around including ADHD as an exceptionality. Because I believe what the concern there is that if this was a formal acknowledged category, that would support more resources, right, for staff and students, and hopefully alleviate some of the perhaps inequitable access to accommodations that students are or perhaps not receiving. So it's thinking in mind with how do we make things more accessible and support our students better, right? Particularly since ADHD is such a prevalent neurodevelopmental disorder.
Certainly, I'm happy to provide an update. And we assume, we don't know, but we do assume that many of our unidentified IEPs are supports that have been developed to support students with ADHD. And so I do want to say that outside of ADHD being recognized as a category of exceptionality, when a need is presented, the school can develop an IEP and put supports in place. So those supports are able to be accessed today, even though it's not recognized by the ministry as a category of exceptionality. So as you said, Trustee Oliver, we did write that letter, or Allison sent that letter. It did go to other SEACs as well as the ministry. We haven't had any responses from other SEAC associations, because sometimes a letter can spark additional letters of support to add to our voice. And we haven't received a response from the ministry. I know the ministry does respond to every letter, so I imagine that one will come at some point, but not yet. I did raise the question with my ministry contact, and she indicated that she's not aware of a review of the categories of exceptionality at this time.
And I know that CADAC, one of the other organizations that supports students with ADHD, are lobbying very hard for this to be changed, and our organization will be continuing to add its voice to the fact that while an exceptionality may not be needed to access support, I think it's important that our families understand the struggles that come with ADHD, and that staff training and supports are put in place to help everyone in the community understand. When we heard those stories, it's not people who don't want to finish their work. It's people who cannot get down to it. I remember speaking to a pediatrician that I know was presenting for us, and she basically said she was trying to write one of her exams, and all she could hear was the clock ticking. This is not, this is a bright woman. This is not somebody who's trying to get out of their homework. These are very, very real struggles that our students deal with every day. And as a community, we need to recognize that while neurodiversity can lead to very creative individuals and lots of very positive things, it also leads to struggles, and we need to be there to support. So are there any other questions at this time? Rebecca.
I just want to piggyback on what you said there, Allison, especially with the pediatrician. Again, with the right supports, these students can be successful. They can be pediatricians, they can be teachers. I speak from my own experience. I was diagnosed when I was in grade 1 because of a car accident and those types of things. So I got diagnosed early, but then went through university, went through teachers college, and I'm now a special education teacher. So again, if we can set our students up from success from day one, as Joanne said, with the support, and we know support is so stretched right now, we do have those success stories. We see that it's devastating to hear the 50% of suicides, students with suicides, youth have a learning disability. It's devastating. But it's also hopeful knowing that we can change that. We have the ability to support these students and change that outcome for them.
Yep. Thank you very much. Anybody else have any questions? No. Okay, well, as I said, thank you for listening to me and for celebrating LD Awareness and ADHD Awareness Month. And we've got lots of events coming up. So I will return back to the agenda. We're now at item 3.0, the SEAC discussion or question period. Are there any questions that anybody would like to ask at this time? Erin.
Hi, thank you. Just a quick question, more of an administrative point regarding the minutes that get circulated. I know that I was asked today, I think, to maybe it was the agenda. I can't remember. Anyhow, I think we're all asked to consider the minutes from the last meeting, but I find it personally a little bit difficult, when we only get them 3 weeks or maybe a week before the next meeting. Is there any way that we could have the minutes presented more contemporaneously? Because frankly, it's hard for me to remember what I wore yesterday, let alone, whether I think there is anything material that is missing from the minutes that ought to be added. So just maybe just a kind of administrative question.
Colette, do you want to answer? Yeah.
Sure. I think I understand what you're asking for, Erin, and we thought we were doing great because we get them out a week in advance, whereas they used to come out like the day before. But Allison and Lorna and Lou and I meet for an agenda setting, and we'll talk about that suggestion and whether that's something we're able to do. So not for November's meeting, because I think our meeting is, well, it's in a week and a half. So, but perhaps for the new SEAC when we resume. And whether we could get our minutes out right after the meeting rather than with the next agenda. Okay, so we'll take that back.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, and not a criticism at all of anyone except for perhaps my own ability to have recall of prior events.
No, I didn't take it that way, don't worry.
Thank you.
Joanna.
Thank you. Yes, I have a question and it'll be directed at Colette. So as I've been meeting with constituents in my district, a number of them, parents of students who have various special needs, are quite alarmed and upset. And I guess there's discussions happening between different regional district networks of these parents around the labor discussions that are taking place. These parents are quite concerned that there's potential for major interruptions for students with special needs. And I'm wondering what, if anything, can you share with us at this point?
Certainly. So I could maybe explain some of the things you might be hearing in the news. Certainly what we're hearing about now is CUPE. It's important to know that in the HDSB, that CUPE only represents our caretakers and maintenance workers. So you may be hearing in the news that they represent early childhood educators and educational assistants. And that is true for many parts in the province, including our coterminous board. But in our board, CUPE only represents caretakers and maintenance staff. And of course, it's not to say that their work isn't important. Of course, our caretakers and maintenance staff do very important work in keeping our schools clean and safe. But these negotiations do not impact our educational assistants and early childhood educators. So you may have also heard in the news about what's called a no board report. And that means that caretakers and maintenance staff could be in a strike position in HDSB and, as I mentioned, other groups across the province by October 31st or November 1st. And a strike can be anything from a work to rule to a full strike, or what we sometimes call a walkout. So that that word encaptures all of that. I do want to say that we remain optimistic. These negotiations are at the provincial level, so these are not negotiations at a local level with our board and our staff. This is between the provincial union and the government. And so those discussions remain ongoing. And as I say, we remain optimistic that a deal can be reached before any strike action is taken. But if we do find ourselves in a strike, the board will have a plan with a commitment to the continuity of learning. And what this will look like will really depend on what that strike action being taken is. But as soon as we know what action is being taken, if any, the board will communicate a plan to families.
Are there any other questions at this time? No. Okay. Then I believe we do not have any questions from the public at this stage. So we're now at item 4.0, 4.1, which is the superintendent's report. So you'll all have received a written report from Colette. If Colette, if you'd like to give us a brief summary, and then we'll open the floor to any questions.
Thanks, and I do apologize that this came out only today. I typically try to get this out with the agenda. But this time of year, as always, was the CCAT 7 administration. And so this is the cognitive abilities test that all of our grade 4s do. And this gives us some good information about some of the learning profiles in the classroom. And this is also the pathway through which we often identify our students with intellectual giftedness. So this screening all grade 4s do. Our families who are attending virtually, they have the opportunity to write the test at home, and then it's proctored through a Google Meet. And then, of course, our in-person learners are doing it in the classroom in the course of the regular school day. We do have on our special education landing page on the public site a detailed description of all of the timelines of this process. So if you want to know more information, you can go to the board's website. And I'm going to turn it over to Sean to talk about our self-contained classes as of October.
Thank you. So as you can see from the chart, we've had some increases in our self-contained classes. We're up to 137 in total. The process for this begins late February into March when we start looking at numbers for the upcoming year. So some of these were determined as late as last April. And then we revisit those numbers as we get closer to the new year as well. So as you can see, we've increased by 4 life skills classes. 3 of those are in Milton and 1 is in Oakville. And that's obviously representative of the growth in those 2 communities. North Oakville has a lot of new homes being built, and Milton is still continuing to grow. So our classes are continuing to expand in those areas as well. Our gifted classes in Morden are, we usually fluctuate up and down a class or 2 in Oakville for the supports there. And then our behavior resource classes, we've been able to have the students graduate from those programs and return to their home schools successfully as they prepare to either enter high school, or some of them actually have graduated from elementary and are attending high school right now. So you can see the other changes there, but those are the key points.
And the last item in the report is just a reminder that the last meeting for this SEAC is November 1st. I believe we have provided you the letters to inform the SEAC members and associations of the process to select representatives for local associations for next term, as well as the membership at large. The communications department has also posted publicly for the new SEAC members through a variety of forums, including social media and the newspaper. And then also a reminder that there's no SEAC meeting for December. And then the new SEAC membership will be confirmed by trustees on January the 11th at a board meeting. And training for the new SEAC will occur virtually on the 17th. And that's it for me.
Great, thank you. Heather.
Colette, just so you know, I did see it on CHCH News this morning, so that's a good thing.
Excellent, thanks, Heather.
Great, Tracy.
Hello, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. My question is about the CCAT 7 test, and how does that testing and process account for the scenarios that Allison outlined? So students that would be neurodiverse, have learning exceptionalities, how would they perform on such a test? I know there's not a single answer, by the way. I think what I'm looking for is, if there's a student that is highly able, but yet has, for example, processing speed deficiencies and so on. Yeah, how are those things accounted for, if at all, in this test?
That's a great question. And I'm going to ask Sean. I'm looking at his little tile here. Sean, if you could jump in and share. Thanks.
I'll share what I can. I think Linda Stewart, who oversees our psychology department or our psychoeducational staff, would be better able to answer that question fully in terms of how the test addresses those needs. It is a vetted test. It's one that's approved across the country, and it's normed against Canadian standards. In the test itself, we've called it the gifted screening in the past, but really we use it as an assessment for all students at grade 4. And it provides a number of areas of information, and you can see it on the board website as well. I'm just glancing at it now. So we have verbal, quantitative with numbers, nonverbal, spatial kinds of things. So staff are trained, and we bring staff out to PD sessions on how to look at all the data that comes in and all the numbers. And what we're looking for, not just for the students who necessarily achieve very highly or even very low scores, but also where there are outlier numbers that don't necessarily reflect a common trend. So you could have a student who is very strong in several areas, and then one area is glaringly underperforming or under the standard averages. And that's when schools and certs in schools will take a look at that student as well and dig deeper to see if there's not something else going on, something that may have been missed through other means. As was already stated, some of our students with LDs and with ADHD have learned compensation skills, and we don't necessarily notice it in the day-to-day, but parents see it at home and they see those struggles. The CCAT 7 actually allows us hopefully to see, and I say hopefully because if the student's writing the test under the standard norms that we want, those things can come to the forefront, and we can start to see a student's profile more fully than what happens in the classroom with work that's being done with supports. And that allows for the deeper conversation to go back to the student work and ask the teacher what kind of conversations are there. So there's a lot of information we get from the test itself. It's not just highs and lows. And there's a lot of digging in that goes into that when the test scores come back to schools, and staff are really, we're giving a lot of PD around that. So I don't know if that answers your question. It's in its entirety. And I think anything that I'm missing, Linda would be the expert to share how the test works at the clinical level.
Thank you. And I'm not able to be more concise with my question, because I'm not 100% sure what I'm asking. Just that, is there a way for these students who have other things going on, but yet may be, somebody said gifted is not the correct word, but to emerge, because that may or may not grant them opportunities in their classrooms that are needed for them to believe that they are in fact capable. And I've just seen it in my own family where it's the performing on these tests was not really a thing. But very highly able with other things going on that didn't necessarily emerge. So.
I understand. And I think what needs to be recognized is that this is one measure, one assessment over the course of a student's educational career. And while we use the data, there's all sorts of other assessment forms and measures that we use to really help support a student with the needs that they're presenting with. And that can be conversations at the school level. Parents can bring forward information, all those other things that we continuously practice as well. And I just want to clarify, it's not that we don't use the word gifted, it's that this test had historically been called the gifted test, which limited what staff were looking at in terms of results. And now we want them to look at the entirety of the data that's received to really understand the student, not just the top end.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yalene.
Hi, Tracy. I don't know if I can add a few comments, and just, because just a little bit personal experience, because as you said that, this gifted test, as Sean says, and tend to have some different, perceptions among the students as well as the parents. And so speaking of my own personal experience, my son intentionally failed the test because he didn't want to leave his friends. And but the screening actually take 2 steps. I think that was 15 years ago when he did, and so that's the procedure may have changed, but you could see that the perception of this kind of screening and for children and who are taking, or grade 4 student taking this kind of test, and so they may have heard, and so if they get screened, then they may have to change school, and some children don't want to move school. So so that's what happens, that so the test sometimes that it's really screen, and all the children that, or some children don't do well on test. And but I see this because he did pass the first screening, he failed the second screening. But this result, as Sean says, give the staff the opportunity to look at the data and then reach out to the parents to say, well, look, and is there any other things that we failed to look at from this test? I actually went to the school to meet with the teacher and principal. And so to discuss, is there anything missed from the testing? And so based on the teacher's feedback, and then the board and the psychoeducational department, I think the psychology actually did another test on him. And so just to see that, if the screening really, do anything. And so I got a phone call and from the board and from the psychologist who performed the test, and saying that he's actually very bright, but he didn't want to move school. Actually, he didn't move school, and even he was screened and as gifted. But as the first year, and all the symptoms and the other struggles that he had in a school, and he became very unhappy. And in the morning, he says, "I'm sick. I don't want to go to school." And so that grade 5, and it was a struggle and for him. And so Then eventually he moved into a self-contained class and where he really thrived. And so as you can see, it's a process and, for the family and the students to go through and to really see what is their potential and what is the support that, can help them. But the screening certainly is just one tool. I think, as Sean says, I just want to put this process, as an experience that, as a parent and who struggled and with the process. And so I don't think I answered your question, Tracy, but I hope that, this is just, a illustration of the process, as Sean said.
Great, thank you, Yellen. Just a quick question then I have is obviously, we know that many students with LDs probably don't have or maybe just starting to get a diagnosis around about grade 4 when this test is being undertaken or going on a wait list to get a psych. So, there may be some indication that something's going on, but we're not necessarily understanding exactly what it is at this stage. What are the opportunities if a child later on, you find that perhaps they're maybe gifted? I guess I'm asking, are there additional screening opportunities for students who don't perform well in the CCAT 5 or 7 and then ultimately turn out to be gifted? Are there other opportunities for them to be screened and go into a program that might better suit their needs?
Yes, and before grade 4 and then after grade 4. So as Sean said, that the abilities screening is a snapshot, but with a problem-solving pathway that our staff use to really identify the need, problem solve around that need, and then determine what are the appropriate steps to support the student. And that can occur at any point, from kindergarten to grade 12, students can come through the problem solving pathway. So it's not a screening per se, it's really tailored to the individual student. And then what actions are taken as a next step are determined by the school resource team.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, so at this time, I'll ask if there are any association reports. Okay, well, obviously there will be one from us. So as I mentioned, October is LD and ADH Awareness Month, and LDAHH is proud to be celebrating this with a variety of informational social media posts, programs, and events. On the 29th of October, we have a free in-person workshop with Dean Bragonier, TED Talk speaker and founder of Noticeability, a charity celebrating the strength of the dyslexic mind. And on November the 7th, we start our ADHD Behavioral Management Workshop series with Dr. Robert Silvestri, providing parents with hands-on strategies to manage emotional dysregulation and build executive functioning skills in students. Where possible, we're also continuing to launch additional cohorts of programming for our Reading Rocks, Mastering Mathematics, Social Skills, Next Steps, and Executive Functioning programs to meet the huge demand we've seen over the last few weeks. And for more information, please reach out to us through our website at www.ldahh.ca, which has full accessibility and translation supports. Okay, any other associations at this time? If not, we will move on to the trustees' report.
Okay, hello everyone. Here we go. So Heather and I will be tag teaming again this evening. And our report is as follows. Tomorrow night is our next board meeting. We'll include for you the links in our report that will be found in the minutes. There's a number of items that may be of interest to you as follows. Firstly, there's the Ombudsman's annual report. that's coming to the board for information. In there, you will see, I believe it's the 16 times that the board has been inquired about to the ombudsman, and only 2 times in the last year did the ombudsman reach out to board staff for clarification, and that's where the inquiries ended. So we don't really have details about the specifics of those items, but they are summarized with as much information as we have in the annual report. A second report that's coming for information purposes from staff are the suspension expulsion biannual report. And so that gives the statistics around expulsions for the last school year. And interestingly, there's a statement in here about moving forward, we're looking to address the disproportionate outcomes for our students who identify as Black and Indigenous, gender diverse, sexually diverse, and students with IEPs. So I think that's a great recognition in there, and certainly looks like some work is going to be done in that area. Nextly, the school naming and renaming policy and governance procedure report is coming for action on October 12th. I believe I mentioned this at our last SEAC meeting. And one of the items for discussion is whether or not to name schools after people. So I look forward to having that discussion, and certainly if anybody has any input, this is one that's for trustee decision. So we'd love to hear from you. And then there's also the delegation policy and governance procedure report that's for action on October 26th. So that lays out the steps by which people can request to delegate in front of the Board of Trustees, so at the regular or special meetings. And those delegations should be around governance-related issues and items. So things that are in the trustees' purview. Nextly, hopefully all of you have seen the invitation to comment on the board's long-term accommodation process. So it's a plan that's updated annually, and it addresses the existing and projected accommodation needs of students in elementary and secondary schools. It's also where we get the information to identify new capital projects, so expansions for schools or new schools, such as the ones currently being pursued in North Oakville and South Milton. And it's broken down by municipality, so you can see what's going on in your respective communities. There's an online feedback form, and that feedback is actually requested by tomorrow. So if you haven't been in to check it out yet, please do. It's found on the board's website under the long-term accommodation plan page. And now I will happily turn it over to Heather for some exciting news.
Thanks, Tracy. This is exciting news. The Climate Ready project at Irma Colson Public School in Milton is finally completed. And they've been working on it diligently. Well, it seems like forever, but we got to cut them some slack because, of course, COVID got in the way. HDSB and Irma Colson, along with Evergreen, are excited to be unveiling the new Climate Ready Schools project. It's the first of its kind in Canada, and the Climate Ready Schools program provides a progressive approach to addressing climate change and school ground design. The project creates enhanced and accessible experiences for students' development in which they connect hands-on with the environment. Essentially, the overall aim of the project is to help mitigate the effects of climate change by cooling outdoor learning sites with shade and better managing the infiltration of stormwater to minimize flooding. So the backyard of Irma Colson School has been ripped apart for a long time, and I've been watching them all this time working on it, and it's fascinating. Trees have gone in, and there's little berms, and there's all kinds of stuff. That's not to say that the whole backyard is no longer for basketball or the likes, because not everybody is a sporty spice. So there's other parts of the backyard that are really awesome for this. I personally am getting an invitation. Received an invitation to go and have a tour of it next week, and some students are going to give me the tour. It's all good and well to hear it from the adults, but really from the kids' perspective is super important. So I'm really looking forward to that. And congratulations to Irma Colson for sticking it out, and HDSB for making this happen. And I'm really, really hopeful that we're going to look at this at some other school sites as well, because I think we need to be the leaders. Our students are the leaders, and student voice says, and we've heard it loud and clear, that we need to really start paying a lot more attention to the environment and improving things. So the kids, the students are going to gain so much by this, and I think we could, lots of schools across Halton, we could get and be the leaders in this. So thank you.
Great. Tracy, did you have your hand up? No. I'd just like to say, it sounds absolutely wonderful. It sounds like exactly the sort of thing that the school board should be doing, and that our kids want us to do. So really, really, really pleased to hear that initiative. Does anybody have any questions for the trustees? Okay, so we're now at item 4.4, the committee reports. So I'm going to go through a list of the standing committees and see if there are any updates. The Parent Involvement Committee. The Accessibility Coordinating Committee.
Yes, we have met, and there was quite a lot of activity and discussion of various things that have taken place and developments that have occurred. And I mentioned the fact that we would really like to put the Accessibility Committee on our list of presentations, and they were amenable to that. So hopefully there will be a presentation from the committee in the new year after the election. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lou. The Equity and Inclusive Education Advisory Steering Committee.
That would be me. It's Diane speaking. That committee has been folded into another board committee that is going to be taking the lead. So within the board, the Equity and Inclusive Education will be directed and looked at and presented about in the future.
Great, thank you.
But that committee will no longer exist.
Okay, thank you. And finally, the Mental Health and Wellbeing Strategy Steering and Advisory Committee.
I'm still currently with the committee, and the next meeting is scheduled for this Thursday.
Great, thank you, Yarlene. Okay, so we're at item 5.0, which is the next agenda order paper. We've already heard from Lou that she's asked for the Accessibility Committee to present to us. At this stage, obviously, we're getting very close to the end of the term of this SEAC. So it's probably as well to wait until we see who the new committee members are and see who would like, what information they would like to have in order to help with their decision-making processes. But if anybody has any specific things that they really think would be useful for SEAC to bring to everybody's attention, please let us know either now or through email, and we can add it to the list of items that we have on an ongoing basis. Okay, and so finally, we are at item 6.0. I did promise to Catherine that we would be finished before she needed to go. So at 8:51, having cleared the agenda, I will adjourn this meeting.